and broad, and then we'll read you the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Diane. I have the honor and the privilege of serving you as Arizona Superintendent of Public Instruction. Joining me today on the podium of the second stop of our listening tour is your representative, Sunny Borelli, and Carol Lippert, who is with the Arizona Department of Education, and she's here to help us with some of the gathering some of the more technical information you might bring to us. So, Representative Borelli, would you like to say a word or two?
Good morning, and it's a pleasure to serve you all, and very humbled to be here. Thank you.
This is our listening tour, and just to start out, just a few explanation and ground rules, but we'll keep this brief. As the superintendent, what I can't do is walk in, for those of you who don't like our current standards, and say, "Oof, they're gone, and we're going to have something different." I don't have the legal authority to do it, nor do I think it would be fair to do the same thing that has already been done. But what I can do is conduct these public hearings, which weren't held back in 2010 or 2009 when these changes were made. So this is the opportunity to get the input that I don't believe that you fairly had before. What we can do with that is take those recommendations, what maybe standards, curriculum, things that we can take to the State Board of Ed for recommendations for changes, things we can take to the legislature and support and advocate on your behalf. And some of it may just be things that suggestions you will give us that will help the State Department of Education better serve the students, teachers, and districts of Arizona. I want to be clear, this is not about politics or political campaigns, past, present, or future. It's about hearing from you and letting you have the input on behalf of your children and grandchildren. I brag a little, I'm a new grandmother, almost 4 months old he is, so we all have such a very vested interest in this vital topic. What is the subject of today? Anything you choose to speak about K-12 education. It can be standards, it can be curriculum, it can be rules at your school or funding, testing, whatever you want. This is a two-part tour. We're here today to listen to you. Questions will be considered rhetorical, that we're not going to respond to at this point. I have a notepad here, and we have tablets and everything available. We'll be taking out all kinds of information that you have to give to us. We'll take that back to the Department of Ed. Some of it may, again, go to recommendations to the State Board of Ed. Some we may help craft legislation to bring to legislators and say these are things that the people of Arizona want addressed, and some of them we may just give you feedback, but we will be back here again in August or September and give you all that we've heard. And this is what we can do with it. We can, as I said already, take it to the State Board, develop legislation, do this, that, or the other thing. We want to make sure that all of you are involved on both ends of this cycle and not just you said your piece. A few little ground rules, and we'll have things flipping through up here from time to time. This is not going to be like a school board meeting or a city council meeting where you come up and you've got your 2 minutes and you're done after that. With the size of this crowd, I think we should be able to accommodate everybody to make all the comments they want to make. But we do ask that you be concise in your comments so that we can ensure that everybody does have a turn. Unlike sometimes school boards, my previous school board, we're not going to say if someone's already made your comment, please don't make it again. We just ask that maybe you not go into all the explanation of it, but please say, yes, I agree with that comment, because we want to know if a comment was made, is that just that speaker's opinion, or do 5 of you agree, do 10 of you agree, or does the whole room agree? You know, that gives it some weight in as we take a look at things. I can't think, we have cards. If you want to speak, you are asked to fill out one of those. If you don't want to speak, but you want to make sure we get your feedback, there's forms in the back. You can use those to put your comments on. You're welcome to take those. If you have people that were not here today that might want to give feedback, we have a website. You can call the department and leave a message. We have Twitter feeds. We have all types of social media. So just tell people however they want to get a hold of us. If they couldn't be here today, we still want to hear from them. So with that, the time is yours to do it as you see fit. I believe, Aiden, you have some people that may want to speak already. We will call you up, and we look forward to your comments. And thank you all so much for being here today.
The first speaker is Norma Wright, and she is from Parker, Arizona.
Good morning. My name is Norma Brady, and I live in Parker. I worked for the Parker Unified School District for 40 years. Just recently retired, but still actively involved in working with kids in the after-school program. I know right now many districts are just finishing up the merit test, and I would like to find out, or people would like to know where that stands. I know this is the first year of us giving it, and I believe they won't get feedback until September. So I want to know how will the data from the testing be used? Will there be labels based on the merit? Are we going to keep it and keep going with it so that we can build some data with that and get some feedback? Our school labels still going to be out there this summer. I know that there are many things that are collected about the giving of the merit test. For many districts, it's been spread out over 3 or 4 weeks because I know the school that I taught at has 2 small labs. You got a class size of 30 kids, so you have to share the lab to take the test. And I also come from a school, that had a very high poverty rate with 98% Native American and Hispanic kids, many of which do not have the computer literacy skills. They've been working on them, but there may be issues with just giving it on the computer. And as a teacher, we're always told to address the learning styles of the children. And one thought was maybe children that are more comfortable taking it on pen and paper to do it that way, and those that are more comfortable can take it on the computer. So just concerns about the merit testing, where it's going, how the data will be used, how it's going to be tied into teacher evaluation and school labels and things like that.
All right, the next speaker is Bill McMahon.
Good morning. It's great to see you back in Mojave County, Diane. I know Mojave County helped put you over the top. It was the majority of Arizonans that elected you, and you ran on the single issue of getting rid of Common Core. So now we're hearing the governor say one thing. The governor came to the Republican Men's Club, and he was asked 5 different times, are you going to get rid of Common Core? Yes, I'm going to get rid of Common Core. Well, what has he done? But this really boils down to one issue. The Constitution over there on the wall says that what is not given to the federal government remains with the power of the state and we, the people. So as far as I'm concerned, the Federal Department of Education is a violation of that Constitution that our president and every other member of Congress takes an oath to uphold. By 1976, when we celebrated our 200th birthday, we were #1 in the world in education and in just about everything else. We put a man on the moon in 1969. Guess what? All without a federal Department of Education. In this country, we treat people as individuals. As the young lady just said before me, some students learn in different ways. Computers are not the answer. I was in the industry for 37 years. It's a tool. But this is the best computer in the world, the brain. The #1 country in the world for the past 10 years, Finland, won't allow kids to touch a computer until 10th grade. And computers are so intuitive today that 10, 11, and 12, 3 years to learn computers should be sufficient if that child is prepared through elementary and the beginning of high school to use the computer in their head to be able to use the computer of today. The last official vote anywhere in this country was in the United States Senate over 20 years ago. It was a 99-to-1 vote in the U.S. Senate to tell the Federal Department of Education to keep their hands off K through 12 education. Again, they followed the Constitution back then. We need to get back to following it here now. It became so bad. We had the Great Recession. We had Common Core, as I said, was voted down 20 years ago. They took it all underground and created state-sounding names, this state association, National Governors Association, to make it sound like it was coming from the states because they knew they were lying about it. They took $4.35 billion out of the stimulus money that was voted in 2009. 787 billion. They took $4.35 billion and literally bribed states across the nation. Sight unseen. We'll give you this money if you sign on the dotted line, and it was just signing for something sight unseen. How would you go sign a contract for a house sight unseen? It's total idiocy. But that's what they did because every state was starving for money because of the Great Recession. As I said before, our entire state voted in November. You ran on the one issue of stop Common Core. Individuals learn at individual paces and rates and that. What we should be focusing on is paying a proper salary to the great teachers we have to retain them and get us in line because great teachers make great students. And I made about 25 copies of this if anybody would want one. But thank you very much for your time and attention.
The next speaker is Richard Hawkins.
Well, good morning, Representative Morelli and Superintendent Douglas. I'm Richard Hawkins, and what I'm here to talk about is primarily philosophy of education. And I have to say that over 20 years ago, I retired active duty military, over 20 years service, and both in the Air Force and in the Air National Guard. I have taken, thank you, I have taken the same oaths of office as our elected officials have, as all the civil servants have, as the teachers have. It was just to some other states, California, Arizona, New York, as well as the national oath of office in the Air Force. It wasn't until after I got out, I was a Mr. Mom for a couple of years. My kids were in middle school and in high school, and I became an advocate for education and volunteer service. I quickly changed that to a reformer of public education when I discovered what was going on and the outcomes that were coming out of education. And that's what I'm here to talk about, is the philosophy of education. Abraham Lincoln stated the philosophy of schoolroom in one generation will be the philosophy of government in the next. And I must say that the philosophy now is overwhelmingly political correctness. Political correctness is the politically correct name for cultural Marxism. Abraham Lincoln also said America will never be destroyed from outside. If we falter and lose our freedom, it will be because we destroyed ourselves. Few of us in the baby boomer generation and older generations would deny that much of our freedoms and liberties have been lost to an ever-expanding federal government overreach in every aspect of life. Alex de Tocqueville also said in his volumes of Democracy in America, the American Republic will endure until the day Congress discovers that it can bribe the public with the public's money, and I will add that the White House also is a bribery scheme. Most would agree that our republic is in trouble either morally, economically, or politically. In fact, many would agree that our constitutional republic is fundamentally transforming into an oligarchy of sorts run from the executive branch. Cultural Marxism is a creation by German communists, planted as faculty in our universities by FDR's administration prior to World War II. And it finally took a foothold, that is, cultural Marxism, in the early 1950s. To achieve their goal, the critical theorists of cultural Marxism recognized that traditional beliefs and the existing social structure would have to be destroyed and then replaced. The targets of this destruction is primarily truth, as found in Western culture, or Western civ, including Christianity, capitalism, authority, patriarchy, the traditional family, morality, tradition, sexual restraint, loyalty, patriotism, nationalism, ethnocentrism, convention, and conservatism. I suggest that the education philosophy needs to be addressed first before any consideration of changes to these standards. That those standards match the philosophy of what we want. We want to try and restore a thriving constitutional republic, or go the way of political correctness into an oligarchy. Common Core is a servile arts skills program as opposed to a classical liberal arts program. As Alan Bloom pointed out, as many others, parents send their children to school to learn specialized skills so they can get a job, college and career. But they have lost the ideal of becoming a whole person living out an integrated vision of life. contrary to what is commonly thought about the book, even the idea of the whole is lost. Thank you.
And before you call the next speaker, I was remiss in my opening comments. If we have any school board members here, would you please stand up and be recognized? I thank you. Thank you for your service, and I apologize for that oversight. Are there any city council members? Is the dean of the college here still here? No, she left. Any other elected officials here? Please stand up and be recognized. Okay, thank you all for your service. Next speaker.
Sure. Jamie Festadego.
My name is Jamie Festadego. I am a nationally board certified teacher and the assistant principal at Havasu High School. I taught civics and economics until last year. I'm an Arizona master teacher, and I was the American Civic Educator of the Year in 2012. Ms. Edwards, I appreciate that you came to our dinner last night. I hope that you saw the shining examples of students that we help develop in our schools. I wish you could stay the whole time. But as I watched you walk in, what I wanted to let you know was to think about the impact that teachers made on those students. It isn't necessarily about standards. It isn't necessarily about what happens from bell to bell. It is about the connections that teachers make day in and day out. Last week, I had the opportunity to go to Ohio to recruit teachers because we do not produce enough teachers in Arizona to fill our schools. What I saw there made me realize that it is not, if we are going to have a catastrophe in this country, it's when, in terms of finding educators for our schools. I drove through 5 different universities in Ohio. During that time, there were zero math teachers that were qualified to teach math at the high school level. Last night, those top 20 students that are graduating from Havasu High School, some of the things that they are going into, we have an optical engineer, a radiation oncologist, an operations researcher for the Navy. If we're not teaching those kids appropriate math and science skills, we have no future. And who is going to become a math or science teacher, or for that matter, any teacher at this point of the salaries that we pay in the state of Arizona? What I learned in Ohio is that nationwide, college students going into college of education programs is down 30%. In some areas, we learned that they are producing 0 teachers that are qualified to teach technology. And for that matter, special education. We didn't even see a lot of social studies and PE teachers, and there are a lot of us. But people are not going into education. Our fix the salary. When I went into education, I never thought I'd be rich. But I certainly never thought that my salary would stay the same for 8 years. And on top of that, I never thought that when I was becoming an administrator, I'd barely make more than I make as a teacher. Teaching is difficult. It's a skill. I know everyone thinks that we're kind-hearted people, and that's why we go into teaching, but that's a piece of it. It's not just about someone who knows math, or someone who knows history, or someone who knows English, or someone who knows the skill of teaching. We wouldn't look at a biologist and say, you're qualified to be a doctor. And when I hear about alternative certification programs, that's what it is. Find someone who's the best and brightest. I've heard a lot. We wouldn't let Bill Gates teach computers? Well, no, not if he's not a teacher. And so salary is a piece of it. Certification is a piece of it. Certification costs a lot of money. It's a difficult process. If we look at what certification looked at in Ohio, it's different than in Arizona because they're paying double certification to certify in different states. Another problem in the state of Arizona is the politicalization of education. We're in turmoil. If I was a kid coming out of college and I came to Arizona at Google, Why would I come here? Why would I come here? We have fabulous schools. Like Havasu City has fabulous schools. I'm a product of Arizona schools. I grew up in Scottsdale, went to Grand Canyon University. My master's is from NFU. I've never been in anything but Arizona schools, and I'm proud of them. But at the same time, I'm worried about them greatly for my own children and for the future. That's my piece about certification. As far as the standards go, they have been effective for our schools. We developed the curriculum that goes along with those standards ground up. The teachers in the trenches took the standards, matched them with our curriculum, matched them with our students' needs, and we've made them work. We haven't left the liberal arts behind. Our kids are college and career ready, but at the same time, they're reading Shakespeare, they're reading the classics, and they're learning how to read it better. They're learning how to make sense of all of the information that is coming at them. And so when we're looking at standards, I urge you not to throw them out. I urge you to have teachers rolling up their sleeves and looking at what meets the needs of the students. However, I am concerned with over-testing. We just had a week of testing at our schools. We now have a window. So what's happening is, and this may not come like a comment, our kids are trying to go play sports at other schools, but then they're testing at that time. So we've basically turned the month of March and April into testing, nonstop. We just aren't getting instruction. I'm a believer in data. I'm a believer in assessing what we do. However, I am concerned about the amount of testing that is happening with our students. And finally, I would like to urge you to continue support for teachers and administrators. As a first-year administrator, what I realized is the focus of education in Arizona is really about the teachers, but there also does need to be focused on developing leaders of our schools to take us further.
The next speaker is Diane Mayfield.
Good morning. Glad to have the opportunity to be here and address concerns that we have. I am a member of the local education association, and I brought a list of things that we sat down and talked about together, and some concerns that our staff members have, teachers and classified. I won't go through all of them. I will leave this document when I go so you can see what they are. I'm just going to choose one of these for now. We have a lot of concerns, as you're hearing, about pay for teachers and other staff members at our schools. And in 2020, the Proposition 301 money is going to go away. And so one of the concerns we have is, how is that going to be addressed? That's one of the ways where we recruit teachers at the low salaries that we have. One of the ways that we retain teachers. So if that money goes away in 2020, that's going to be detrimental to our districts. We're going to have even more problems recruiting and retaining than we already have. I came here from California. This is my first year of teaching in Arizona. And I have to say that I have been shocked by what I walked into. And shame on me for not doing more research before I came here to teach. I have my master's degree in education, special education specifically. I teach special education at the middle school here. And it's amazed me that there is no step schedule for salaries here. You come in at your salary and you stay at that salary until it's determined that there's money available to give you a 3% raise. You know, we just have to do something about that. I know it's a big concern for everyone. But again, going back to my main issue, I would say 301 is a big concern, and what are we going to do when that runs out? Are we going to have a new proposition? Are we going to continue that proposition? If that can be considered, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Next speaker is Sharon Loffer.
Hi, I'm a mom and kindergarten pretty soon. And I've had children in my grandson junior high and my friends in high school. They're ready, 24 years. Okay, I have talked to some parents and some teachers that I know here and have complained about Common Core. They say this is a hardship. Doing homework. Now with that Common Core agenda. Parents and students hate it. And it's hard and confusing. The kids say they want to quit school. And parents and teachers I've talked to here complaining about it. As it may have some repercussions for the child or for the teacher and the student about the job. So they go along with it. This may be how it is done in communist countries or how it was done in Nazi Germany. But this is America. Not a socialist, communist, utopia. At least for the 20 minutes. How about teaching the basic reading, writing, and math? Why is it that my great-grandmother could read, write, and do math a lot better than graduates of high school today? They can't even find a signature. What's going on? My grandmother learned about one room school. No offices. Just one teacher. That was it. And she started the business. She only can before. As it stands today, if you choose, you can homeschool your children. But as you all know, that in Germany is against the law to homeschool your children. We must have cookie cutter all the socialist agenda. And I do not want Common Core or the government control classroom. Thank you.
Next speaker is Diane Klostermar.
I am also a grandmother, a mother, a parent of 4 children, and 1 grandchildren, 1 great-grandchildren. It has been brought up that we have concerns about the Common Core program because we want local control of our schools. We want the parents to know what is in the curriculum. We just had a lengthy merit test. Why isn't that the teachers, the parents, even our head of the school, you Diane Douglas, or even our governor can't even know what's on a test that our children are being given? We can't even know where it's being used, what it's being used for. We understand that it also includes some personal data of these students. What about the regulations against giving personal data to other people? We also understand that some of that data will be given to outside sources for whatever uses. Why is this being done? We would like to see our students learn the basic principles on which our country was founded. To that end, I've been part of the group that has tried to teach patriotism and the love of God and country, and what this Constitution really states. This program goes against some of the vital things in our Constitution. Why are we allowing it? I don't quite understand. We have the most wonderful teachers. The teachers who are doing our program in an after-school program are doing such an excellent job. The students learn from the teachers, not from the box. They can ask questions of teachers. They can interact with their fellow students. They can learn personal responsibility. They can learn to become active in their community. You don't interact as much with the computer. Yes, you answer questions and so forth, but it's not quite the same. I have been amazed. Every class I've gone to, each teacher has some innovative ideas, and to see how they put them into effect and how they're reaching the kids. When I look at this flag, they don't look at a piece of cloth. They look at a flag that symbolizes our nation. They look at the stars that symbolize our state, and the stripes that, and the stripes that symbolize the 13 original colonies. They see the colors that symbolize what our veterans and our people are dying for, what our elected representatives are fighting for. We are a republic, like Ben Franklin said, if we can keep it. If we indoctrinate our children with some of the materials that are in the books today, we will have a socialist country within the next few years. I hate to see that happen. I would like my children to have the same opportunities to be able to achieve the best and the brightest that they can be. And since we founded our country, we have advanced further than they have in 5,000 years lead of the program that we work with. Look at the advantages we've made. We came from oxen to being on the moon. We have made advances in technology well beyond what we could have anticipated because we allow our children to use our brain to come up with those ideas, not to be force-fed with material. I worry about all the testing that's being done. I worry about the fact that a lot of their personal information goes directly to Washington. If this is supposedly a state program, which is not, because when we try to check where it came from, a lot of it came from the federal government. We are being told that, okay, they're going to give us the money, but no one in our state has said how much is it going to cost each school district to provide it. We do also need to agree with other people. They said we need to have good salaries for our teachers. We need that. They haven't had a raise in over 7 years. Just recently this year, they finally got a raise. When we didn't even pass it on. Somehow we found the money for that, and now we're charging the kids $800 to participate in sports. So this first program is going to go to what children. What parents can afford to send their child to even participate in football, baseball, tennis, even the arts. The arts are so important. Common Core in its basic curriculum. We're not talking about standards now. I'm talking about some of the curriculum that's going to come in with it. They were going to get rid of the classics. They were going to get rid of some of the things that when we went in the old textbooks, before we started changing things, it taught moral lessons. It taught values for kids. In our after-school program, we teach them the values and some of the moral attributes that our founding fathers had. Can't we give them to them? Can't we teach them that, you know, this country is so wonderful that we're willing to risk our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor to preserve this country in the true tradition of what our founding fathers had? What are we going to do with these tests? I don't even know what's on them. You don't know what's on them. None of the parents know what's on them. Who is, I know they are copyrighted, but we have a lot of copyrighted material that we get to read. We just can't hand it off as our own and plagiarize. Also, I would like to know how much of this is it going to cost our school district for this program, to teach the teachers, to do the testing, which is a lot more intensive than it was before. Where is the data going on our students? How will it be used? We need to protect these students. We need to provide them with the teachers that we have wonderful teachers in our school. Let's let the teachers teach. That's what they took training for. For heaven's sakes, let's not take that out of their hands and make them a guide by the side. Let's let them be the guide these students to help teach them. But they should teach them according to what the founders, what our country stands for. I looked at some of the recent, and I'll try not to speak much more time. I looked at some of the recent textbooks. They are not teaching traditional history. Why? Textbooks that have traditional history in it, when we have maybe one paragraph devoted to what Thanksgiving was for, and was to thank the Indians, is that all it was for in those days? Let's read what the colonists wrote at that time. It was to thank the Creator. I know they say we have separation of church and state, but you know what? That's not in the Constitution written as such. I've looked through it time and time again, and I'm trying to find those words. Why did our founding fathers give the Bible to every single school and not think it was wrong? They provided it for the school. Why did we have prayers at our Capitol? under the leadership of some of our founding fathers, as long as we were not directing them toward one faith over another, just as long as they could believe that we were found under the guidance of God in founding this country. When you look at many of George Washington's speeches, what did he write? We were founded under the guidance of divine providence. Now we can't even do anything to mention the fact that we have a creator because someone might be offended because they're an atheist. Well, how far down do we go so we don't offend anyone? You can't say he or she in school. Some schools are calling kids penguins because we can't call them a boy or a girl. How far does this desire to have political correctness? This isn't political correctness. This is going against what if we can't even be people, a girl or a boy, or a student that does well or doesn't do well. Some students that get A's are criticized because they get A's, they're called a bookworm. Why? Why can't we look up to those who achieve and try to strive, let them strive for the highest and best that they can be? I just hope we can return some of the local control back to the parents. Bring it back to our school district. Have our curriculum reflect the community that it serves. I don't mean to keep you too long, but please help us develop some books that teach the true history. Because when they tried to go through them, they found the best they could. And the first 20 pages was on climate change. Is that history? Okay, I don't mean to keep you so long. I want to thank all of you for being here. I can't thank you enough for your interest and so forth. If there's any questions I can answer, as you review this material, I'll be trying to provide whatever we can. God bless you and thank you.
The next speaker is Roger Schmidt.
Good morning. Get through. Thanks for the opportunity and thanks for coming here. My name is Roger Schmidt. I'm a member of the local school board at Havasu. And my concern here today is I want to broach with you this is funding. I'm not going to go through the whole litany of funding. I just want to talk about the thing called district additional assistance. State population rules calculates that funding for us at about $2.5 million. Legislature in their infinite wisdom says we're not going to give you all that. We're going to keep $1.3 million. Just using round numbers. The governor has taken out roughly another $750,000. That leaves us with $575,000 for capital. Our pre-existing payments that we have to pay will put us about $200,000 in the hole. I just wanted to illustrate the issue that we're having with funding, not counting pay. I'm just talking about district additional assistance. That's a real serious problem in the state. Looks to me that it takes on the appearance of run us out of business and have charter schools. And the charter schools are places they can go, so it's a political donation. Can't get it from us. Thanks. That's all I have.
Next speaker is Alice Gray.
Superintendent Douglas, thank you for coming. I especially appreciate, as I read in the paper today, that out of these meetings, you will assess the comments made and you will determine those things you can do something about and those things you can't. And then those things you might have influence on. For my part, I'm a resident of Lake Havasu and have been for 13 years. I am a strong advocate of education, whether it be traditional public schools, charter schools, private schools, homeschooling, online, JTED, dual enrollment, whatever it is. If it is advancing our students to become qualified to be good citizens in this great republic, and in the world, then we should be doing it. I also recognize that we are not the same republic as we were when George Washington was in the one-room classroom. We are also not the same United States as we were in the early 1950s. Things have changed. Our population has changed. The number of students where English is the second language has changed. Politics have changed. All sorts of things have changed. And I still believe that the home is the place to teach the values that remain so important to us. And in education, we are to educate our children. I'm very thankful for the Lake Havasu Unified School District. Excellence, as you know from the reports that you have. My main topic is not Common Core, although that was yours in being elected. Frankly, I think possibly it can be tweaked to the point that may satisfy both sides. I understand if you do not want information disseminated on your children, that is an option for the local school districts. But what I am here to speak on, and I only have those preliminary comments because of the number of comments that were made primarily on the philosophy of education and the Common Core. And by the way, I am a conservative Republican. And so I don't want you to think this is some left-wing person speaking. All right, my main topic is financing traditional public schools in Arizona. Look where we are on the national scale. And yet, Arizona is one of the fastest, if not the fastest, growing state in the United States. Let's do something to keep our education at a level that honors the state that we live in. And I am a strong advocate because it helps to keep dollars at the local school district for tax credit program. However, this is one of the things you may have influence on if you deem that it has merit. I am concerned that although I understand school choice and I am for it, I think there are some areas where there are failing schools. It's a very important alternative. However, perhaps the pendulum has swung too far because of political reasons. And now in Arizona, even with the tax funding, tax credit program, it is more advantageous to charter schools and private schools than it is to the traditional public school. I think you need to look at that. Also, how they can spend the dollars is different in charter schools and private schools versus public schools. And you talk about local control, well, should the local school district be allowed to determine how that would best meet the needs of the students and their care? So to me, that is something that you can look at. Please keep it. I think it's a wonderful way to keep dollars at the local level. But mainly the people that I know, and I know a lot of people in Havasu, especially I'm a mentor of moms with children, and if they choose a charter school, it is primarily not because of a better education, but because of smaller classroom size. And I think it's time that the state of Arizona looks at the classroom sizes of traditional public schools and get those down to a level that will help with recruiting teachers, and along with that, advocate for enough money going to the public schools to pay the teachers that we need to prepare our students to be successful. And if you think of the United States and wanting to keep it at the top of the world, as many have said, then the children the young adults that we are graduating must be able to compete in the job market as it is today.
The next speaker is Dante Marinelli.
Good morning. My name is Dante Marinelli. I'm a 25-year resident of Lake Havasu City. I've raised 3 children here. Came in from California on a private school setting when my kids were, first, second, and 5th grade, I believe it was. Put them into the public school system, which we thought was just going to be horrible. Because at that time, 25 years ago, Havasu had one hardware store, and that was about it. So, but with rural Arizona, the way we do it, everybody did well. So my kids are products of this school district. And probably the problem I'm having right now is I have a daughter that's a school teacher. And our nightly conversations seem to be around education. She received her degree from NAU. She received her master's degree in teaching from NAU, which I guess is pretty much required of all teachers nowadays. So to see a teacher with a master's degree getting paid what she gets paid is quite scary. I mean, I own a local business and I have restaurant servers that are making more than our teachers are. And they're working 4 or 5 hours a day. So pay is definitely an issue. She gave me a couple of topics to talk about. Might not be an expert on it, but I'm going to try to share these things with you. The testing program is mentioned quite often. Any testing program is not working. And I would recommend that you get into the schools and you sit down with these teachers and you watch the testing taking place. She just finished the week of testing, and she's not in the Havasu school district. She's in the Dysart school district. She's what they call a specialist teacher, which I guess she teaches music. She seems to think that her teaching position is more looked on as a babysitter, or when all the other teachers have to take their breaks and they drop the kids off over at specialists. So she's basically in charge of doing all the testing in her school. Wrote most of the curriculum for the Dysart school district in music. But she said, it was funny, Dad, I was sitting at the computer and you're not allowed to talk to these kids anymore. Depending on you give them instructions, they sit down and they take the test. She said, have you ever tried to teach a 3rd grader that has new hair ribbons in her hair that day about taking a computer that your school's going to be judged on? She had 5 students within the first day of 3rd grade class. All they did was push forward, forward, forward for the computer. They thought that was a great way to get through the test. No clue what they were doing. And the teacher can't go in and stop and say, hey, this is wrong. You've got no guidance here. You're in a classroom in front of a computer and that's the test. And it was horrible. Because I know what our test scores are going to be. 50% of that 3rd grade class was disqualified because they were pushing next or something on. They weren't even reading the text. So she says, that was the scary part. She says, also, we had 4 computers to go through the testing program in the school. And so our testing program, like some of the teachers here mentioned, has taken 3 to 4 weeks. Because of that, our day is completely ruined. Because we've got kids out of the classroom, coming back to the classroom, out of the classroom, back in. Because how are you going to teach when these kids are testing? You might as well just close down the school for 4 weeks and do testing. Easiest way to do it. Because teachers can't write programs for half the kids. So I think you've got some issues going on with this mandatory testing, and she doesn't believe that the kids are over tested at this point. Teacher evaluation. She's quite concerned about that. She seems to think that the evaluation program is definitely flawed. He teaches in a district that is a lower district of her choice. That's where she wanted to go. Which is it's really hard to have when you're competing against kids in the Scottsdale school district. And your evaluation is basically exactly the same. Because half the problem is that, we'll have kids come in, they don't show up. You call for a parent-teacher conference, they don't even know where the parents are. That's what we're dealing with nowadays. And unfortunately, it's a tough world out there for these kids. They're being raised by parents, grandparents, dad's in jail, mom doesn't know where she's at, the drug dealers. There's a lot of that going on. And by the way, I'm being judged on this. That's what I have to teach every single day. Since we've got a major problem with mainstream kids with handicap issues. Because, you know, parents can come in and say, I'm sorry, but I want to mainstream my kids in that classroom. So she says she'll have some of the kids that have challenges to come into a class of 35. She's one teacher. She has no special ed education, how to teach special ed students in the girl classroom. So she's got like, you know, one of her grades, she calls them darters. She has 3 darters, which means they'll just get up and run out of the classroom. They just leave. You have no clue where you're going to be the only teacher in the classroom. You can't leave your classroom if you have kids that are darting. That's the problem with as teachers. Is that we're being taught we have to teach special ed as well as if a parent wants to mainstream the child, you have to be able to keep that child in the classroom with an untrained teacher. So she says that's a major problem that she has, and how do you judge teacher salaries? The career ladders, I guess, are gone from her district, so there's no opportunity. Again, in business, you reward on performance. No need to reward on performance. You take all that evaluation out of the program. They're not going to get career ladder anymore. You know, they're not making enough as it is, and then you take some special people away. She teaches after school sports to give supplement. She writes the curriculum for the high school online program to get a little extra money. And she said, yeah, that's all I do. I can't make it off the teacher's salary. So I teach all this other stuff. And so if you don't think, you know, after school sports takes 3 hours out of your day to do that, you know, and I make $1,000. I make it for teaching after school sports. So it's just, you know, there's issues that we're dealing with. Tax credit issues, I'm not too sure, but I don't quite understand the formula on them. If the person checks their tax return, they get $100 per person or $200 per couple. Why don't we just give the school $200 per person or $200 per couple? We can afford to do a tax credit. Why can't we just make it part of the bottom line and just give it to the schools? That's what we need. It takes a person like Mike on my behalf or somebody else working, we check the budget. It doesn't cost you $1, it doesn't cost you anything. Just check the box. Well, if it's that easy to just check the box, why can't we give that money back to the Republicans? If you have an extra $200 in your budget, by me just checking the box will go to the schools, why can't you just give it to them? I don't understand. So maybe it's something that I don't understand. Is that the question?
Really not questions right now are considered
Okay.
historical, but
Okay.
we can get you information.
That'd be great.
And
I'd like to know exactly by checking that box, how that comes out of the general budget. Perfect, that'd be great. Thank you. And the last thing that she mentioned is the funding for the arts. Being a choir teacher, she's quite concerned. And as much as we talk about math and science and all of that, it is important. But the arts are also very, very important. So as a required teacher, you know, it's a different way of learning. And we know that in music and art, that the test scores of these children that participate in the programs are always much higher. And yet we have the rest of the district, we've had elementary music out. And the very first opportunity they have is at the junior high level. So it's like taking a kid that's never played football and telling them, okay, that's 7th grade, here's football, go for it. How good are you going to be? So at 7th grade, they're picking up an instrument for the first time, or studying the instrument for the first time. And I'm going to tell you just a little story that we went into, and I myself was a trumpet player here in high school. Ended up doing quite well. Ended up having the highest scholarship dollars given for that class he graduated with. His class matched ASU, NAU, and U of A, the entire school. The money given by those 3 colleges gave you people what the scholarship was if you received at our school. When I went on all these auditions all over the United States with him, the interesting part that I had is I went to the Peabody School of Music, which is part of Johns Hopkins University. And they pulled us all aside. And they said, I just want you to know that all you parents are probably really scared to death, but you give it a new after he gets out here. He's gonna have a degree in music. What's gonna happen? They passed out a list to all the parents, and they showed where the graduating class placed. 50% of the class was in the top Fortune 500 once. They recruited all of these kids. And the reason for it is it wasn't even in music. It was a technical way of learning. They came up and said, we can train an engineer. We don't want an engineer. We want somebody who can learn differently, who can learn tactics, can adjust. 50% of those kids went to people like Sony and Bose because they had ear training, and they knew how to do speakers, and they knew how to do audio decks, not even playing their instruments. So when we looked at sending kids to these programs, and they actually had programs that these kids could get involved in that would place them. But right now in our school district, we don't even recognize that. And that's getting scary, because I think those arts are very, very important. They teach a different way of learning. It reaches a totally different child sometimes. It's not in the conventional way. But it brings it about, and I think so. It's a fight. And I think there is money out there for these kids. Colleges and things that have all this scholarship money, it's available to kids with the arts. But if we're not teaching that, we're not going to be there. Thank you.
The next speaker is Karen Vandergott.
Good morning. Thanks for coming. Really appreciate it. Even when we actually have the competition conventions there, I want to hear what you have to say. Okay. So, I'm here at Energy. We did meet Diane, but refresh your memory. I homeschooled my own children for 15 years. That means I was not working. And I taught in private schools. I had my own school when I was homeschooling for 2 years to teach junior high and high school students. And I taught in charter school for 8 years. So, and I'm now in the public schools. And I teach special education at my Havasu High School. I work with autistic boys and also very low functioning boys, small boys. And so, and I also teach the Constitution Club at the high school. That's one of the jobs I've been doing in the last 3 years. Yeah, 3 years. I'm doing that. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of remind you of who I am and where I'm coming from. I have a few issues, and I am retiring this year. And it's not because I'm not healthy and not able to. It really comes down to, and it's not entirely pay, even though the pay is going to, when I'm retired, it's going to be equal to what I'm making now. And that's after 15 years of no working at all. So you know that I'm not getting all that much money. So, but it is that. And then, but it's the stress, it's the responsibilities, the overload of things. I mean, the hoops you gotta go to even get that 301 money. Oh my gosh. And there's too much testing going on for students. You feel like your hands are tied, you can't do anything. You have to write IEPs when you're a special education teacher, and they have tripled the amount of IEPs. I'm doing, I do IEPs for kids I don't know. 2/3 of them, I don't even know them. I have to spend time somehow. I don't even have enough classroom help. I had started off at the beginning of the year with 2 A's. They took away A's, and so I was left with 1. And somehow I'm supposed to get to know these students on my caseload and be able to help to form their transition plans, get out of high school, and be concerned about their grades, and communicate with their parents, and run IEP meetings. Sometimes I have parents who want 3 or 4 meetings a year, and that's before school or after school. The responsibility, I'm sorry I'm doing this, but this is what I know. So it's the teacher evaluation, although I was very fortunate to have a very high evaluation this year. and I really worked hard to be the best I can be and to have the greatest attitude I could possibly have. But it was done to me. And so I turned 65 and I think, I guess I'm going to have to school. I didn't really want to. That wasn't my plan. I went out and got my special education certifications so I can teach till I was 7. I stayed very healthy. I was hoping to go on. I just can't. What's going on right now is so upsetting. I spent hours of work. I stay at school sometimes 7 o'clock at night. I bring my work home. People at my church don't understand, why aren't you more involved in your church? I don't have time. I'm too in constant stress. I try to have happy days for my students. I try to do the best I can. I have this with the students. I always follow the students. And you can yell and scream at them at the drop of the hat. Go down into deep depression. I have to be that rock for them. And I think I'm a pretty good teacher. But you gotta lose a good teacher. You gotta, it's just not, education is just not designed the way it should be. Like Diane, I know we have spoken and we know we're on the same page as far as where education should be. I believe in more traditional education. I taught my own children for 15 years. And I always be light directed. I looked at my child and I said, you're good at this. I'm going to direct you towards that. I'm going to make sure that you have all the tools necessary to do that. And that's what I did with my two children. And they're all really successful. I mean, not successful for money. That's not what I mean. Two of my children, they have amazing families. And my son has 6 kids, and he just does the most amazing things with them. And he homeschools his kids too. And it's just so exciting to see them so involved in their community and so vibrant for learning and growing. And that's what I want. I'm not out to make them, engineer or somebody really, somebody like that. That's not what I'm after in education. I want them to be successful and know who they are and find vibrancy in life. And that's not what we're doing right education. However, I really do drive my special education students. I have my classroom to do some unique things that other people are not doing. I believe, I have a suggestion. One thing we could do is it's so simple. Memorize. There was a bill that was passed a few years ago that we're supposed to memorize the part of the Declaration of Independence. I don't hear many people doing that. Maybe it's only for 1 grade. I don't know. I taught 4th grade 1 year. My students knew the Declaration of a big section of Declaration of Independence, preamble, and they also knew the Gettysburg Address. Why memorize? It patterns the brain. And by patterning the brain, you're able to pick up excellent vocabulary when you use the words of the founding fathers. So your brain begins to pick up this vocabulary and it patterns language, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility. Those words are so rich. And my kids, they say, all my students, special ed students can say, those who can speak, I do have some students who can't even talk, but you know what, they stand up and say it with us as if they know it. We do it every day because I believe in that. That's something simple we could do. That doesn't cost any money. We could be doing memorization. They have kids reciting. What's wrong with going back to reciting and learning? Patterns the brain. And there's a lot of research on this. Nobody's looking at it. Nobody cares. I do. Another issue I want to talk to you about is the ridiculous testing that's going on. And I want you to zero in on my special ed kids. And I signed a waiver, I can't tell you what this is. But let me tell you something. It is the most gigantic waste of time that I've ever seen. I did Ames A for quite a few years, and I thought Ames A was kind of bad. I thought it was professional, the pictures they showed, and everything they did about it, I just thought, this is not, this is really measuring something. This is really, I mean, my kids are so tremendously diverse. So tremendously diverse. I've got students that are just barely at a 4 or 5 year old mind, and then I've got kids that are maybe at a 5th grade level, and it's just unbelievable that they're going to somehow get data from that. But then Nexit came along as a result of Common Core. Now Nexit, I don't know if you're familiar with it, NCFC, and I'm sorry, I don't even know what that acronym stands for. I did it one time, but I really didn't care to memorize what it stood for. This year with Nexit, oh my goodness, they were expected to answer questions. I had a student, and it said in the direction, if they missed the first 4 students, you can just close the book and you're done, right? Okay, well, I had students, first 4 questions were okay, but then it started asking questions about, algebra questions, geometry questions, and my students don't know that kind of stuff. I mean, this kid I was testing, his brain was like that of a 5-year-old. And he just kind of looked at me and just started doing a bunch of guessing. And I had to continue with the test because he got the first 4 he responded to pretty much correctly. So I had to keep giving the test. And I thought, I think it was like 100 questions or something. It was going. And then the writing was, we were working with one boy, and first of all, some of the questions are be politically correct, and you have words in there, but it would have to have a name like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of some of the weird names they come up with, something that is from Mexican or Israel or some country. It's not American. It's not an American name, so naturally kids don't know how to pronounce it, and so we're trying to read or I read it to them, and they're so busy concentrating on that weird name I gave them that they can't even concentrate on what I'm saying. So you have them write, and then it's some kind of politically correct question in the writing, and probably something about recycling, I don't know. Anyway, they're supposed to write, and the student we were writing with barely knew how to write. He had like a few letters down, and then they had to go on to the next section, and then he had a few more letters down, and then we're supposed to photocopy these, and then we're supposed to send them in, and I thought, really? What is this? I have a purpose for teaching my students, is to prepare them for life. And I tell them every single day, I have one goal for you guys, one goal. I want to see you leave this high school, and I want you to find something that you can do, that you feel good about, and that you're going to walk away in your senior year and be able to go, and I think that we're doing this shit very seriously. We start them out with jobs around the school. We mark down how well they listen to directions. What is your attitude? How are you? And I'll say, and when their attitude is bad, I'll say, now, if you got a job, how would your employer feel if you talk to them that way? Like I had some people say, I hate you, or something like that. That's what I hear. And I say, do you think your boss is going to say that's okay? And they'll go, no. And I'll go, okay, I'm sorry, I have to mark you down here because you're not doing something that is preparing you for life. And every day I say, what are we here for? We're here to prepare for life. And we're here to get to, so we can have jobs someday. Good, okay, now let's get started. And that's the focus. The focus is about not, yes, we have to teach academics, but that's all mixed in with what we're doing. And so we put that together. It's sad that we're professionals and we can't be treated like professionals. Like, you're a professional, Karen, so we're going to trust that you can put together a curriculum that's going to meet the needs of your students, your individualized students. That's what an IEP is for, individual education plan, right? And so I could do that, but my hands are tied because I have to teach these specific things and set goals that are going to fit in with the testing plan and fit in with whatever the school says we have to do. The school says you are going to make sure that you have these tier 2 words. Okay, I do the tier 2 words, but hey, I like the tier 2 words that come from the Constitution. I like from our founding fathers. I think I can choose out some pretty good words. I have on my board, if you ever come to my classroom, in the remaining time I'm here, well, actually, the next teacher says she wants to leave them up. I have character qualities on my board. We review character qualities every day. They know what discernment is. They know self-control. They know punctuality and all the character qualities you can think of. They're on the board and they learn the definition. What does that mean? We talk about it every day. So character has to be taught. Nobody's trusting the teachers to do this. They're like, you teachers don't know what you're doing. So this is a checkoff list of what we want to see. We want this. I like to teach character. Well, I like to memorize. So the diversity of teachers is what built this country. Because we talk to children. And before all this testing, evaluation, and all this went on, we produced some great Americans. But that's declining. And now what do we see? People in jail, unparents, well, they don't show up for their meetings. Parents who are so busy with their own lives, they turn well. I've had parents who say to me, I'm part of the Shining Star Club too. We go out and go field trips with our kids and in the community. And I have a very highly volatile young man who loves to go on field trips, but he kind of loses it a lot of times. So I said to his father, I said, could you come on a field trip with us? And he said to me, and this is after school. And he said to me, that's your responsibility, not mine. Now, it's that. Okay, I think it's it.
The next speaker is Gary Powers.
Superintendent Douglas, Representative Borelli, and Ms. Lippert, thank you for coming to Lake Havasu to be with us today. I was a consultant in 98, 99 to the Lake Havasu Unified School District on the district's employee evaluation. So I worked not only as a consultant to them, I've been on the board of Mohawk Community College, and I'm currently a board member of Telus Preparatory Academy. I'd like to dispel the myth that Telus as a charter school is a private school. It is not. It is a public school. My concerns today are the funding for our schools, increasing per student funding for not only public schools, but charter schools, and attracting teachers. Our salaries are not equal to the salaries of the adjoining states. Further, I would like to see, and thank you, Superintendent Douglas, for serving on the Charter School Board. I'd like to see better coordination and communication between the State Board of Education and the State Charter Board, recognizing that our school, like Telus, are a public school. So, thank you very much.
The next speaker is Cassandra Mooneyham.
Awful baby. He's just at the age where he's getting stranger danger. I'm afraid that it might not work out so much for you. Thank you, Superintendent, for being here. Thank you, Riley, and members of the panel. My name is Cassandra Mooneyham. I'm a Lake Havasu resident, mother of 3, 2 are school-aged children. And education is something that I find extremely important because I understand how that is going to equate to our entire future. We might not all be here, but our children will, and they are going to be defining our future. I echo the concerns of many of the statements made before me.
One of my primary concerns is regarding standardized testing. And standardized tests have had flat scores since 1970. We have not demonstrated any improvement. We're also not representing any accountability of these schools to the public that they serve. These tests have done absolutely nothing to be effective. I would much prefer to see that we eliminate these standardized tests in order to free up some funding for teachers to teach, to do the jobs that they want to do. Now, universities and colleges use a model where you pass the course, and that instructor tells you, good job, you've met the requirements to pass this course, and now you've moved on. And that's considered your completion. Why can we not trust school teachers to provide the same authorization? You have met the requirements of this course. These courses are required for high school graduation, and you've completed it. Now you move on. I don't believe that standardized test is necessary for that. Standardized tests cannot effectively define a person. You can't look at a full person in any way. Some people test well, some people test poorly, even though they may be extremely bright. And some people may have an engineering mind that is very technical. And some people may have a very creative mind. A standardized test cannot capture that information. So I would hope to think that sometime in our future we can see the elimination of standardized tests. My second concern is with all of our publicly funded schools. All publicly funded schools, including charters and districts, should be held to the exact same standards and requirements, the same legislation. If we see charters excelling in an area because they have more if they have more freedom to do something differently, and we see the charters excelling at that, that same opportunity should be allowed for our district. If we see that the charters are doing really well without having to have early childhood certifications for our kindergartners, if we see that the charters do well without requiring early childhood certification for kindergarten teachers, why are we requiring that our districts have that certification? We're imposing additional responsibilities on our districts, yet we're seeing some positive results from our charters. So if we see things that we like in the districts, it should be the same for the charters and vice versa. That also leads to our funding. These are both publicly funded. The funding matrix should be the same for both. If the charters are better funded per pupil, maybe the district should be the same. But I don't understand why we have to have two separate rules. We're creating a sort of battle among education and amongst educators, and the goal is the same. We're all out there to educate the children, and we all want to do the best we can. So we need to take the best of both worlds and combine it and make one policy that will work across the board. My one issue with charters, as they are publicly funded, is that they are not held publicly accountable to the communities that they serve. Their boards are not publicly elected, and they are not required to hold public meetings. Now, they are responsible to the students and families that they serve, and those families can withdraw their approval by withdrawing their students. However, I, as a taxpayer, cannot withdraw my consent for my taxpayer dollars, and I have no area to represent any concern I have. So I believe all public schools should have publicly elected boards with public meetings. I would like to see legislation that reduces mandates on the schools. I would like to see an overall reduction in mandates, especially on funding. We need to see more flexibility in schools to use their discretion for how they will use their funds to best meet the needs of their students. We know that students are extremely diverse, even within a community like this, but from community to community, the needs may be drastically different. So if that funding were more flexible, then we could best decide how to use it. And I expect that we get more community involvement.
As we free up more opportunities for the district, then the accountability rests on the citizens again. And us citizens need to be the ones who are attending those school board meetings. It's abysmal how few people attend the school board meetings here locally. I've been in many of the school board meetings, and it's disappointing. So we as a community need to take that as our charge and our concern to be there and help guide our district. As far as the standards, we have a set of standards. There's currently the Common Core, Arizona College and Career Ready standards. Now, I don't think we can ever make everyone happy with any set of standards. There are areas in this set of standards that early childhood psychologists are saying are developmentally inappropriate. Those are definitely things we need to address. But I would like to see us back off on the package standard set. I would like to see the districts being able to change those standards in ways to better adapt to their community. If a community is very heavy on interest in the Constitution, for example, we should be able to make our standards meet that and match it. If we live in Silicon Valley and we're heavy tech people and we want to have a lot of technology building type of thing, then let's do that. But I think that should lie with the district. We have extremely bright people in our district who have done a great job at developing curriculum for many years, and we need to make sure that we're putting our faith in them. As Ms. Gray said earlier, I believe that values do belong in us. I think we are seeing a lot of values being brought into school and backwards way through curriculum teaching values. That's another thing that you can't make everybody happy. My values are going to be different than the next person's values. And those are things that altogether should be left out of the school. It's the parents' responsibility, and we need to remind them of that. The more responsibilities that the schools continue to take on and continue to adapt this burden, the less the parents feel responsible for it. And they're using it as an excuse that it's not my job, it's your job. And that's not true. It's not the school's job to raise a child, it's to educate them. The other gentleman spoke about forests and the arts, and I agree, these are extremely important things. Many students, especially our ADHD type of students and other maybe more fidgety and active type of students, they learn in different ways. And this is the way that their brain is able to grasp information. A lot of them have to be moving or doing things in a different way. So the arts are extremely important, but that also extends to physical ability. Now, sports is separate from something like PE or physical education. I personally believe that we should have a lot more unstructured outdoor playtime. Something that doesn't cost a whole lot of money. It can be done during recess or different blocks of time, but maybe if we free up some of that testing prep time, we can have some more outdoor time, where it doesn't require every second of the day to be structured. Kids need time to develop their own community and to develop ways of responsibility through managing their own time. And this is done by working with each other and being able to communicate and play and move and have some time where every moment is not completely mapped out for them. I have heard some stories from students locally that at recess they're required to fold their arms and walk in line so as not to touch the next person. I can understand some of the reasoning for that if there may be issues with pushing or something like that, but I think we need to give these kids more time and start at an earlier age and allow them to develop those skills themselves, because you're not going to have everyone standing in line with folded arms until they're 18 and expect them to be able to deal with their peers once they turn 18. These are skills that have to develop over time. We have to build up to it. It is part of individual responsibilities that develops at age-appropriate levels. That brings me to the class size, which Ms. Ray also mentioned. Classroom size at the lower ages is extremely important to be very small. I would even say at the kindergarten level, we should be looking at 5 to 7 students per class. But on the flip side of that, In the real world, you're not going to have anybody babysitting you, and college classes are often over 100 students. So as we're working progressively in age, we should be seeing larger classroom sizes. When we're into the high school level, I don't think it's inappropriate to have classroom sizes of 50 or more. Because when you're in a university, nobody's going to sit there and say, okay, Johnny, let's make sure we stay on task here and this line by line what you're going to do. No. You're going to be given instructions and expected to self-guide and be able to lead yourself through your exercises and activities. You'll be responsible for your own work. And that skill also has to be developed. My next point is regarding personally identifiable information. This should be one of our #1 priorities for our students. The Bill of Rights protects our privacy. And nobody seems to think that that extends to our children. They're not yet old enough to enter into contracts, and yet here we are seeing across the nation personally identifiable information being sold. I'm not saying that's happening in our district, and I understand our district is working diligently to protect information. However, there are federal mandates coming down that we need to block at the state level, and this information is not appropriate to share in any way, shape, or form. I would like to see the complete dismantling of the statewide longitudinal data system. That is not something that should be compiled in any way that it could ever be leaked, shared, manipulated, lost. Once things are stored electronically in a database like that, we know it's never secure. That can't be allowed to happen. Double checking on your still time. Didn't want to be too lengthy. I believe that concludes all of my comments. Once again, I want to thank you. You are holding true to your election promises. You told us that you would be available, you would be here for the students, and I see that you have the true desire for that, and I honestly appreciate that.
The next speaker is Pat. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. Darylene Brown.
No, I'm from the Colorado River Union High School District. I've served there I'm in my 20th year of being there. And I am the district testing coordinator. I want to thank you guys for coming to listen to us and to thank the school board for picking a platform that at least made the testing easy. It's taking a lot more time, but the platform that they chose has been very good. I have very few problems with the testing. I was trying to schedule and stuff. So I want to thank you for coming in and letting us have to meeting. And that
It's nice to get out.
I mean, I think most of us from here could probably drive down there with our eyes closed. We've done it for so many years, but of course, one of my concerns is funding, and I know that Douglas, you don't have any control over that, maybe some influence, but our representatives and senators, we do need better funding in the state for education. I know there's a lot of demands on the money, but we do need to find ways to get our teachers more money. We're losing teachers every year to the surrounding states. One thing that is helping is the certification changes that are being proposed. The lengthening the time for that they need to finish the deficiencies, and then also the SEI changes that are coming in. Those are going to be very helpful to our teachers. Thank you. I understand that you're putting together a panel to look at the education and the standards and stuff. I'm just hoping that the rural schools are very well represented on that panel. So, sometimes things are put together and it seems like a lot of Phoenix and Tucson people are on the panel. So just keep that in mind. We have a lot of discussion about Common Core in Arizona. We're ready. I think that we need to stop looking at that and look at the standards. As the administrator from Havasu said, the standards are just standards. We as the school develop the curriculum. And so we're the ones developing the curriculum. The standards are better than they were when I started in Arizona. teaching years ago. They're more rigorous, they have a better depth of knowledge, and a better spiral. And so those are all good things for our students and for our teachers. Charters versus public, the young lady that just spoke did a very good job. I'd just like to add to that, we need an even playing field between charters and funding and teacher certification and funding qualified and in the accountability. So just that needs to be made an even playing field. I want to thank you for what you guys are doing. And I want to say that a lot of the changes in education and our students are in the families. That has been a change. I've been in education for 30 years. And families are different, and that makes a big difference in the type of students that we're seeing and that schools have to deal with. And so that's something we don't have a lot of control over, but I think in some areas we need to work with families better to get that brought up. I want to thank you for your service. And for coming up here. Thank you.
Next speaker is Pat Rooney.
Morning. I had read in the Arizona Republic that I hope they were correct, that the state legislature passed a bill that we're going to have to pass the civics test. Is that correct? And evidently that was signed by the governor. And I just want to make sure I'm on solid ground here and that test was going to be, and this is what was mentioned in the newspaper, sort of pattern on the immigration test. Is that correct?
Yes. And I think this is going to be the same test.
It will be the same test. And that this would be a requirement for graduation.
They have to pass that. They have all from high school to pass it, 60%.
But it's somewhat, that's a little ironic to me that we come in here and we start talking about standards. And that we're suspicious of standards being started up high, pushed down. That doesn't bother me. Because when I first started teaching here, the legislature passed a law that all students are going to have to take a free enterprise course. That's all they did. They didn't go in, and they may have not had certain ideas of what should have been in the free enterprise course. But I was the first teacher who helped organize it in the county. And there was enough confidence in us, the teachers, that what we would do is we would go ahead and teach this class. The kids consider it education, and it's still a requirement here. So I believe in standards. And what you run into in schools is all parents or teachers think their school is a good school. We pump a lot of money into what we think, that should be done. But how do you quantify what is a good school? And the only way you do that is you have some common standards so that the schools in Mojave County can be compared to schools elsewhere. A common, certain things in the curriculum. And then you have the confidence in those schools to go ahead and implement their own curriculum. And then you have some testing that can find out, are you accomplishing those goals? I can remember when I was at high school, when I was an administrator there, we implemented the common end of course assessment. It hadn't been done before that. And that was that an example would be like in U.S. history, all the members of that department got together and said, this is the standard you should have met, and it will be tested at the end of the semester. What was the purpose of that? The purpose of that was to improve the quality of instruction and to make sure that the students were walking out with the same level. And that was done right at a department level. In schools, a lot of schools do that at the school level. So it doesn't bother me to see that the state will set some standards like on this. But it all of a sudden gets me that when all of a sudden we're looking at some standards that are set sort of nationwide, so we can find out how our kids are comparing, how they're doing it. Even though the curriculum will be developed locally, there's a big falter all about it. But so it's going to follow the immigration test, right? Yes. Okay. Well, that's all I got to say. But it's all I believe in standards, high standards, so that when a kid walks out of school, whether they walk out of the school in Phoenix or Lake Havasu, that we know our kids are on the same level as those kids. So it doesn't bother me that all of a sudden, hey, let's get rid of the standards. Unless you have something better to put in there and you direct it at the state level, I'd be interested in that.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Rooney? You put that history department put together a standard. How much did that cost?
Didn't cost anything. I mean, you get the professionals together, the people that know what they're doing, and they can come up and there's a consensus that this is what we're going to test on. But it wasn't driven out of, it was them coming up with it. But then all of a sudden, when you get into a larger issue, if you're at the statewide level, you're going to have to involve a lot of other people to bring that together. And you can do that in every discipline.
I have a couple of follow-up. This is going to be here a long time in Havasu. Mr. Rooney, would you agree that we Havasu, Unified School District, is pretty much isolated community, is more unique, or is it the same as, let's say, Phoenix Unified School District? Are we?
Okay, I haven't been in any of those districts, but I know over the years, because I was in the high school as a teacher and an administrator, and now I'm on the school board and I'm a citizen. My 3 kids went to the school, so I know a lot of people. But the district works extremely hard to produce the best possible product. I mean, the teacher, and just to mention the thing on, the issue of brain drain. I don't want to get back on this the subject of salaries, but it does come back oftentimes. I just talked to recently 2 parents in town. Their kids have moved. One kid moves to Texas. He gets paid $15,000 more than he's getting paid here. Another group of teachers are moving to Maine. They're moving there because they get paid more money. And the fact of the matter is, if you want to attract people in, particularly to the rural districts, people are going where the pay is. And I think Jamie Festadego said it. When you go to the universities, and you do not see people going into education, they're going elsewhere. In the end, you're going to have brain drain. But I don't know how you're going to solve this problem, but I am not that suspicious of if the federal government's going to pump money into schools, if the state government's going to pump money into schools, there's got to be accountability. So that, hey, and how do you measure accountability? How do you do it? That's all I'm saying. I know it's a hard job, but I don't want to belabor this one.
Would you agree with me that graduation rate is a high school district? Graduation rate would be kind of a good barometer for the level they're trying to figure out successful school districts are.
Well, it might be. I'm not saying that it is. What I'm saying is I could graduate a lot of kids. I could lower the standards. 40% pass passing. My graduation rate would be outstanding. And you have to put everything together. It's not that simple. In other words, if you're graduating 95% of the kids, wonderful. But the key is, what are they walking out the door with? What does that diploma mean? What have they learned? Are they competitive? Thank you.
The next speaker is Patrick Barney.
I'm sorry, could you say that name again, please?
Sure.
Barney, like the dinosaur?
Yep.
Thank you for coming again. Most of what I was going to say has already been thrown out there. One of my key issues, thank you, sweetie, is the governor's decision and many in the state legislature's decision to support not paying the schools what was mandated in 301. And that seems to me, with the nation of people who, a state rather, who lambast the federal government for not following the law and then not doing it themselves. That to me is very irritating. And I know we're talking about minutia in the law and what we can do maybe if we don't want to pay it or we don't have it. And the government saying, our government, our state government saying that we just don't have the money, where's the money? And to say that in a vacuum does seem legitimate, except when the state did pass this, voter approved, you would have to raise taxes to pay for it. And with the government, our governor saying that will never happen, and giving back $100 million to businesses that may or may not use that money to create jobs. Right now in our district, we have, and I've been here throughout the entire pay freeze. That's not the point. I do have skin in the game if we did have more money. But next year, someone mentioned we do have an $800 sports fee. We had a construction teacher who secured funding for a machine that if he did buy it, we would not be able to plug it in because our district doesn't have the funds to upgrade the electrical to the standard it needs. Buses break down consistently in the middle of the desert driving back from Phoenix, whether it's for a club or whether it's for a sporting event. Since I've been here, home economics is gone. The teacher is gone. We didn't have the funding to pay for that teacher, and we didn't have enough money to upgrade it to use it as a CTE program. And now the CTE program is going to be in a separate building down near the river. Teachers, somebody mentioned it, and I know Mr. Marinelli's son or daughter rather named Iser, and I'm sure she has a laundry list of these too. Elementary education is suffering specials reduction. I know teachers in the elementary school, it's not just even the fact that they cut specials for the kids, that's terrible. But now the teachers also have half of their planning time every week. A lot on staff cuts. I know Mr. Wright was very eloquent in talking about teacher recruitment, so it was best today. I guess my issue began by why I wanted to ask the question was basically how do you feel on the funding issue, especially when it comes to the law?
The next speaker is Christy Olson.
Good morning, Superintendent Douglas and Havasu County. My name is Christy Olson. I'm a National Board Certified Teacher and a Master Teacher, and I have taught in Lake Havasu City for 23 years. My husband has also dedicated his professional teaching career to this community. My daughter last night was recognized as one of the top 20 graduates of Lake Havasu High School. She's a product of Lake Havasu High School District K-12. She will attend the U.S. Naval Academy July 1st. She is going to attend that U.S. Naval Academy because she can read, she can write, she can do math, she can speak. She can do all of those things because of the public educators in this school district. Honor. She honored her third grade teacher last night as being her most influential teacher. The third grade teacher is also a national board certified teacher and a master teacher. Her third grade teacher will leave this district this year and will move to Maine. We as a state have got to attract, fairly compensate, and retain highly qualified teachers in this district. Our kids deserve it. My kids deserve it and got it. Everybody else's children and grandchildren deserve that as well. So I encourage you, please do what you can to compensate these teachers fairly so that they will stay in these districts and teach these kids. Thank you.
The next speaker is Robin Fitch.
Hi, thanks for coming. I don't live in Lake Havasu. I'm a winter visitor, but I am a retired educator of 36 years. I love my view, and as I walk and run and canoe and kayak and bicycle and whatever I do around Lake Havasu, I have to tell you how impressed I am with the people that live here, that have gone to school here, that are educators and have been educators here. This is a great town. It needs better funding in the school district. I know that's a huge concept, but it has to be addressed. And if you're here saying, listen to us, coming from Seattle, Washington, I can tell you that we have the same issues. It's not an isolated Arizona situation. Although I do think Arizona has more of a funding issue than Washington State. There's power in numbers. You know, there's power in education, but there's power in numbers. So I hope that as political leaders in this state, you will work hard with other states to figure out the funding issue. Yes, we have trees, we get our money for schools from cutting down lumber. Okay, well, we're cutting down so much lumber. So again, creative minds together. We talked about sports and pay to play. You know, in the old days of education, school was just school. And I don't mean to minimize it, but it was about reading, writing, and arithmetic. All the time in the sports. We have to get back to funding education because I believe that Lake Havasu has to subsidize their special ed program. They have to subsidize their busing program. Those are the hindrances that come to the educators, the administrators in the district. This tax credit opportunity, I think it's fabulous. We don't have that. I'm not used to that situation. And if I lived here, I would definitely take advantage of it. I think it's unusually $200 a person. Why don't we open that up? Some people have a lot of money that they would love to donate to the school district. As I say, I'm a little visitor now, but I am seriously considered living here. I won't be working for the schools, but I will donate a lot of money because that's my future. Maybe we're looking at a global society, and the students that I taught in Seattle, I know for a fact there's one living here right now. They happen to rent in the same complex where I'm renting. That's kind of like each other. But I also know there's like Havasu students that are living in Seattle. So trying to keep this magnifier on just what's best for the Havasu or the state of Arizona, we need to remember this is a way more global society than in the past. So thank you again for being here. Unfortunately, it's about the money. You have fabulous teachers here. You have fabulous teachers in the whole state. You have great parents that want the best for their children. Give them what they need. Thank you.
Next speaker is Josh Clifford.
A lot of stuff I want to talk about, I already talked about, so I'm going to talk about something a little different. I'm from Washington, and we had a class called It's Your Future. And it's probably everything that school does. How to change diet. You know, maybe an auto style class, you already know the person that's on the side of the road. If they don't know how to change diet, they're going to wait an hour and call their dad or their brother or their mom or whoever knows how to do it. And I learned more in that class than almost any other class that I've been in. And a lot of things taught. We walked in there and we filled out like a little application. She said, "What do you want to do?" "I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a policeman." "Do you want to get married?" "How many kids do you want?" Yep. So we took a newspaper and we looked up how much firemen is. "Okay, you want to get married? What's your wife want to do?" "Oh, she would be a stay-at-home mom." So she paired you up with a person in class that wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. And she said, "Find a house that you want to get in the newspaper. $150,000. She taught you about how to buy a house, how to get a mortgage loan, how to balance a checkbook. Throughout the course, she would say, "You know what? You have flood in your house. You need a new water heater. Where's that going to come from?" She took us to auto shop class, showed us how to change the tires and start a car. She took us to how to manage our time. How your kids need to be picked up at 2 o'clock. You're out constantly, always for an emergency, or somehow you had to call your spouse like once a week and talk to her for like an hour. That was one of the requirements in the class because that's how it works. How credit works. A lot of kids don't know how credit cards work, or debit cards. I work in a financial institution, and some kids come and say, "My debit card's working." "Well, there's no money on it." "Why is there no money on it?" "I don't know. You should probably call your parents or whatever deposits money in there." And that's really frustrating to see kids that have no idea how their debit card works or how anything works like that. Retirement. They don't teach you about retirement. Saving for retirement, if you start when you're 18, you'll be good to go. But people usually don't start till they're 30 or 40. That's another thing that this class will teach. About voting. A lot of people, they put things, sometimes in history class and things like that. And this district has got math money, which I said when I was in high school, and it teaches you a little bit about finance. It teaches you more the statistical things that, what it works at 5% for 30 years, how much interest you're going to pay and stuff like that, rather than teaching you how to get a mortgage or what credit score you need or loans and stuff like that. Maintaining the household in the car is another thing. I have numerous friends that are saying, "My car broke down, can you come help me?" "Well, why did it break down?" "I don't know." "Did you put any oil in it?" "No." "Have you done anything to it for a year?" "No." A lot of people just don't have that like that. And I know some of it's with parents and things like that, but these are some of the basic skills that you need. And a lot of our kids are graduating, whether it's educated or not, on things that they don't know how to do. These are little tiny things that will help people succeed, even if they don't go to college. And I know the goal is to have everybody go to college, but in reality, that's not what happens. So we need to set them up to succeed in life, even if they do not go to college. Whether it's work, how to get a job, resumes. I know sometimes, I'm not about sharing here this district, they do resumes, cover letters, how to do a job interview. Politics is another thing that she didn't go over, what political parties are for and things like that. She just made sure that you knew the curriculum, you knew who your state representatives were, your national, everything like that. So if you had a problem, she had us write one letter to a representative that we wanted to help fix. All 700 students, when we did this in 8th grade. So I'd like to see a class like this where you help students succeed, even if they're not going to go to college. Every single student should know how to change tire, or know how mortgage works, how to get a mortgage, who to go to. They all ask their friends. And I'd rather have it come from an educator, that a mortgage person that comes from a bank, or wherever they come from, to help them either a mechanic or anything like that. Just basic skills kids need to succeed. And I severely think lacking in a lot of the kids that are graduating here.
Okay, the final speaker is Nicole Cohen. Anybody have a card that they want to speak?
Superintendent Douglas and Representative Miller, thank you so much for coming and listening to all of us. I'm a little disappointed that some people spoke and left, because I think it's important that we have a conversation and hear everybody's views. And I know that everybody in this room truly cares about our kids and education, and they have different things that they care about. And I think that's part of what's missing in this conversation, is that everybody wants to talk about their most important ideas and concerns, and then we don't really hear the other side. So from Thursday night you came in and listening today, I always try to listen to what's going on. I know how I feel, but I really want to listen. So I appreciate you coming and listening and taking notes and video and doing what you're about to do. I want to say a few things about our local district. I think Superintendent Douglas got a glimpse of that last night. We saw some phenomenal students and the stories and how they were inspired, and 5.1 GPAs and some of the schools they're going to. I mean, it was just mind-blowing, and I look forward to attending that function going forward because it was really great. Our district has a very high graduation rate as per, compared to our state. I think that's a measurement of our accountability to our students. We're at 83%, statewide, we're at about 75%. So we excel at that. These are the most current stats available for 2013 online. So if you have updated information, it's not available to the public.
86%.
Okay. Attendance rate here in Lake Havasu is 96% compared to the statewide, which is 95%. We have the same poverty rate as statewide at 24%. Our operational efficiency is rated as a B for our auditor general, a solid B. And 50% of our schools are A schools and 50% are B schools. When you include the student support and the instructional support, which we're now going to include into that, what we're spending in the classroom, we will be at 67.2% in Lake Havasu, which is very high percentage of dollars in the classroom. When we talk about funding, I think we need to be intellectually honest about the discussion, and that is my biggest concern. Because we talk about how Arizona does not fund education or does not make education a priority, and that is not a fair statement. We spend over $10 billion this year, or we authorized and signed into legislation. We're going to spend $10 billion on education. That's about 45% of our budget. It might be a little higher. And I know that if you spend 45% of your personal family budget on something, that's a priority to you. So it is a priority here. We also like to compare teachers coming from California and the salaries that they're making. I've heard teachers, they took a $20,000, $30,000 cut to come and teach in Arizona. Well, the cost of living is different in California. Arizona, 42% of our federal land, or of our lands, are owned by the feds. So we're not making our tax base off of 42% of our land in Arizona. And property taxes is what is designed to fund education. So we are really getting slighted, if you will. And you can't compare that to the eastern states that are paying their teachers a much higher rate. They have more dollars to work with. So I think that is really a really important message for our state, Arizona Department of Ed, and for our legislators to, I don't know if we need a one-page PowerPoint breakdown. We need something very simple for people to understand that we do make education a priority. I think where the breakdown and the problem is that the legislature, and I'm not talking about the current legislature, I'm talking about for the past 30 years of legislation, has put so many requirements on how we spend our money, so many mandates. We have people in DC and we have people in the state, and they have nothing to do with education. They are from businesses, and they are basically telling us how we're going to spend our dollars in the classroom or in our district, and it's unfair. If we have no restrictions on our money, I have no question in my mind that we could increase teacher salaries in our district by 20%. If we had no restrictions on the dollars that we had, that would not be a problem. But we are mandated to spend our money a certain way. So I hope that the department and the legislature will make that really clear going forward, how we spend our educational dollars and how we really do rate it education is a priority in our state. That's important to me. I wanted to go on and also just quickly mention when it comes to education, you heard from Karen Vanderjack, a special ed teacher. We've heard from the parents of some of our really gifted students, and we have everything in between. I hear a lot of people talk about, you know, we used to have home ec, and we used to have wood shop, and we used to have things that excited the kids to keep them in school. We still have that. It's called JTED. It's just something different now. But we do have a whole host of kids, and as a really smart lady said, one size fits one. I heard you say that continually the other night, and it's true. So the idea that we're going to mandate on our teachers, on our principals, on our administrators, how they're going to conduct in their school is absurd to me. We have high standards. That's another thing that I would like the department to make clear to our state. The Arizona standards that we had and the Ames test that we had have been rated by Board of Institute along with every state in the union, and we had solid B standards. The reason that everybody says that the Ames standards were no good, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, Ames weren't the standards, it was just the assessment, is because when the first round of assessments came out to measure those standards, we failed miserably, and so they dropped the cut score. And then we still didn't do so well, so they dropped the cut score. And it's almost like this manufactured crisis in education that didn't exist, but it's been manufactured so that business and government can make more money off our kids. And so I think that instead of all of us fighting each other, we don't have to agree on each person's priority. Mine are different than everybody in this room. But if we don't start getting together and working for our kids instead of fighting each other, we're not going to fix this problem because we have big money, big power, and all working against us. Because they're looking for money. We're looking to educate our kids, and they're looking to make money. I think one of the critical items that I would like to see as maybe one of the only mandates when it comes to education is cursive writing. It's the one thing that is not a mandate, and I think it's the one thing that is so critical. And I know there's studies, there's evidence. We talk about that a lot, evidence, science-based evidence, how important cursive is. And I know that somebody was just telling me this recently, and I'm going to look it up. There's some studies about schools that are going, there is no printing, straight to cursive, and it cuts down on dyslexia, and so I'm going to look into that. But I think that that would be one thing I'd really like to see pushed going forward if we're tweaking the standards. I'd like to see that. I would like to see less of an emphasis on workforce development. Education is not for the purpose of developing a workforce. And this is where the chamber comes in, and this is where big business comes in, and they now want our public health, our public schools to train their workforce. They were always responsible for training the workforce when they get into the workforce, but now they want us to do it. That's what workforce development is about. And I think a byproduct of a good education, a solid education, is you're automatically prepared to enter the workforce if you have a solid education. You don't have to rename it and change everything. I think, I'll say it again, I've said it many times, the funding formula in Arizona has to be addressed. And there has to be a huge effort on the part of every school district to participate in the ways that it needs to be addressed. I'm not a bean counter, and all due respect to them, because I just don't understand math in that way. I mean, I can understand it when it's presented to me, but I don't know the ins and outs of accounting. But those are the people that we need to help with the funding formula, is the people who are entrenched in the local budgets. I also want to see equal rules. I agree with some previous speakers about charters. While I think charters do good in certain areas, and I can understand how they came about, I do not agree with publicly funded charter schools that
are not accountable to me as a taxpayer. And I don't see, we've been doing charters in Arizona for 20 years. We look at the comparisons over the long term, that I believe I read the report in the auditor, one of the Auditor General's reports, there's not much of a difference. So you're gonna have your super fantastic handful of charter schools within the state that are off the charts doing great. Well, guess what? We have just as many local public schools that are fantastic off the charts doing great. I believe that we need to assess our kids, but this high stakes punitive testing that we've been doing is awful. And again, it's about money and control. It's not about our kids. And we've had assessments. I mean, we assess for the NAEP, every 2 years, I believe, for math and reading, so we know where our kids are. We've had the TIMS and the PISA, the international tests. We've had, ACT, SAT. We've had plenty of tests to be able to gauge where our students are. But this incessant testing, this punitive testing that is attached to our teachers in the classroom is criminal in my mind, because assessments should not be punitive. And also, I wanted to just touch on the Teach for America. I know that our colleges of education changed the way they used to develop, and I'm maybe using the wrong terminology, but this is how I understand it in my head. They used to develop specialists. They used to develop math teachers. They were great in math, and those were the math teachers. And then they changed to where everybody can teach everything. If you get this teaching degree, you'll be qualified to teach everything. And that was a big shift in the way we were training our teachers. And I do need to get back to, of course, we have no control over this, but this is important. If we're going to have math teachers, they need to be experts in math. Like I saw, it was Mr. Olson last night. I think I'm not sure. And he has a math mind. It's very clear. He's a math guy, and his story was fantastic. And that's who we need if we want to produce kids in the STEM field. We have to have teachers that specialize in that. And if we don't have the restrictions on how we fund our teachers, we can't attract and retain. So we need to free up some of the regulation that is preventing us from being able to do that. Because the money itself, I believe, is there. And I also wanted to agree on the class sizes that I heard earlier. Small as we can get it in the younger grades, and big in the older grades, because we are supposedly preparing our kids for college and career. Well, they need to be able to work more independently the older they get, and that would be important. And I believe that concludes my comments. Again, I want to say I really appreciate you coming and listening, and I know from conversations that I've had with you that you truly are here for all the right reasons. We really appreciate that. So thank you.
We got a couple. Yeah, we have one more card that was turned in, and then a couple speakers that spoke before that wanted to add very brief comments if we have time. We have just about 10 minutes left with the room, so I want to be sure that those comments are brief at the end. So if I could have John Warren come up, I know you put in the card.
Thank you for allowing that extra time. Good morning. Superintendent Douglas, welcome to Mojave County. Representative as well. My name is John Warren. I'm the superintendent of the Topaz School District up the river here. Small, isolated rural district with 90% poverty. Originally from Tombstone, Arizona. I sit on the Arizona Rural Schools Association Executive Board. I am a member of the Executive Board of the West Central Regional Service Center, which consists of Pawnee, La Paz, Yuma, and Yellowknife counties. I have a couple of things here that deviate from finance. My focus is primarily finance, but under Superintendent Huvudville, there were a number of quality AD folks retained and a number of quality ranking level, 15 years or so, and a number of new hires. And
I have faith that ADE will use its collective mind and put together a quality testing program and quality standards. And then secondly, I want to address the fact that it costs $800 to put a sport here in Lake FCC. Two friends here from the Colorado River Union High School District. Caroline Brown spoke earlier. Mrs. Kinsler is here from River Valley High School. We're the defending state champions in football. If we had an $800 sports fee, I don't think we could fill it. I'm not sure what your poverty demographic is. Ours is 90%, and we are a big school. We mentioned the lighter rates earlier. With 90% poverty, we're a big school. Again, I'll try to brief understanding the implementation. Superintendent Douglas, I would hope that you would be an advocate for children in regards to funding phenomenon that we're being impacted with. My concern is half-day kindergarten funding. We fund our kindergarten. Lake Havasu funded its kindergarten. Still does full day, but at one point in time, they were charging $2,000 a student to have to do that. And we certainly didn't do that for our poverty, but we have data to prove that the full day kindergarten is viable and necessary to get those kids reading by third grade so that they're not stuck in that bureaucracy that's not having to be detained and not moved on. The second thing I'd like to address is first things first, and the tobacco tax. When Representative Video authored that bill in the language, the ballot language, it was to educate all of Arizona's children birth to 5. That has since evolved into a heavily bureaucratic organization, and I would be curious to know the dollars that are collected versus the dollars that go directly to fund those children's programs. There is intense scrutiny regarding the application system. It's not open to all of Arizona's children. It's people who qualify under a specific poverty rate. The application used to be 6 pages long. It's now 5 after I raised some cane about it. It has to be on the steering committee, which I was not, but they did condense it down to 5 pages. Well, they want to know where your home loan is from. They want a copy of your income tax records. They want your work studs, all those kinds of things. Our schools are not Fort Knox. We have employee theft and insurance. Those are unnecessary intrusions into the privacy of individuals. We don't need people's tax returns. We need to go back to the language that Representative Goodale authored that bill with all of Arizona's children. I think it's been mentioned earlier, another concern I have is the sunset of Prop 301. It was mentioned that we're competing with Southern California. Those are two different realms. Not really. Here on the tri-state area, we are competing with Laughlin and Needles, California. I just lost a teacher. She's going to Needles, California. She's going to get a $22,000 pay raise. That's just across the river. We have a number of teachers who live here in Lake Havasu that can use Needles as well. And the benefit package of those union states in California, we have to compete with here in Baltimore as well. So that's difficult. One of the things that we do in my district is we use our 301 money to attract and maintain quality educators. I hope that is something that we can't wait 5 years with that gets ready to sunset. That needs to be addressed as soon as possible. And again, everything's funding related here. Also SPED, mandated by law. I saw people raising cane about the Havasu School District hiring therapists, speech therapists, physical therapists, and occupational therapists for $90,000, $95,000 a year to go and rate. And we're required to supply those services. So again, this is a spend issue. This is we need more money. We also would like to address the fact that our audits are extremely expensive and they are failing. If you look at the number of fraudulent activity cases that are occurring in schools, the audits are not doing what they were constructed to do. They're procedural audits. They're not catching
all of the districts in the state are being audited by two firms. Sometimes that's called monopoly. So they set the rate and we pay it. And it falls on the burden of the taxpayer, and money doesn't go to children. So again, I would ask Superintendent Douglas that you please be an advocate for children, and we certainly appreciate you taking the time to get out in the state, see how we live in the hinterland, and look at some of the quality schools and programs that we have throughout the state, and the great things that teachers are doing for kids here. So thank you, and safe travels to you as well.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Can I respond about that first things first? Yeah, a couple years ago, I think it was 2010, it was on the ballot for the state legislature to actually have some oversight over that first things first money, and they put big money against that initiative, so we lost.
Sure, and if you remember, there was also a movement to get a loan when the state went into its financial conundrum to borrow the money from First Things First, and shot down the course because that was not the ballot language. Unfortunately, Representative Goodale's not in a position anymore that we can, have this conversation. Look what your bill has evolved into. But the percentage of money that's being raised by the tobacco tax versus the percentage of money that's actually going to children, there's way too much bureaucracy. We have the Valley of the Sun United Way involved with it, and don't quote me, not even quote me. My understanding is that 7% of that money is going to the ADD, but I'm not quite sure why, because they don't do anything for us. But again, the bureaucracy involved with the tobacco taxes far-reaching, overwhelming. We have coaches, there's so many entities that have their hands in that pot of pie that again, the percentage going directly to children is minutiae compared to what's being collected. I thank you for your time.
And I should not, but to see that I had experience with First Things First on the private preschool board I was on, and what it did to us, so.
Sure. Thank you.
Just a couple, we have about 3-4 minutes left. Norma Ray, if you could come up, you had a couple of brief comments you wanted to make.
And we're going to keep, since these are second bites of the apple, just a minute or two.
Oh, I totally understand. Since I went first, I didn't realize I could address it when we went to get it done, so I appreciate it. And Mr. Barney, I believe, did touch a little bit on this, but I didn't hear much being addressed about continuing cuts to the capital budget and the maintenance of facilities and transportation. All of that is as critical as, recruiting and retaining teachers. And that's, I totally understand that, but we have schools that have full plumbing or air conditioners that are gonna need to be replaced. Our Parker district, their transportation goes from the door to the river down at almost to airport. They cover a huge amount. So transportation is an issue that we have to deal with. And so just to find out what's being done to help with the continuing cuts to maintain maintenance, and I understand those are areas that were cut in this recent budget cuts. So maintenance and transportation are also big issues out here in the rural areas. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming.
And Bill McMahon.
One thing I would like to add that I did not mention in my first address, the Federal Department of Education has a budget of $85 to $90 billion. You talk about wasting first things first. Well, look at our federal government. If that money, if the Federal Department of Education disappeared and that $85 to $90 billion went to our local schools all across the nation, we wouldn't be having a funding problem. Once again, it's the federal government. Tons of people pushing paper around and doing nothing for our kids in the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank you all for being here. Comments Thursday night led me to a little story at the end, and I'll just basically share a brief story with you to conclude today. Take that as the prerogative of the chair, I guess. I had the opportunity to be in Washington, D.C. the end of March, and on behalf of the citizens of Arizona, I met with Secretary Arnie Duncan. We had a one-on-one meeting, and then the Council of Chief State School Officers, as an organization, we were actually brought in to meet with the president. So when we had one luncheon with Secretary Duncan, he was explaining to us, and whichever side you are on the assessment issue, we'll put that aside, but he was explaining to us why from the federal government, testing and assessment is so important, and I'm quoting him here. He says, you know, assessment is so important because when we give you our money, we have to make sure you do this, that, or the other thing with it. And I turned to the superintendent from Oklahoma who was sitting beside me and said, funny, the people who elected me seem to think it's our money that we give to them. They take their cut off the top and give it back. So that just gives you a little perspective of the difference between Arizona, whether it's the state of Maricopa or rural Arizona, and the thought process in Washington, D.C. But with that, I want to thank you all for taking your time to come today. We appreciate so much hearing your input, and then again, the process will be that we will take a lot of this back to the department. Some will result in recommendations to the state board, some to legislators, some may just help us serve you better. I think one thing we can do, as I was sitting here, we considered questions rhetorical, but some of them really are very perfunctory that there's easy answers to. So maybe on our website for this tour, things that are very easy to answer, we will put up answers to them, and you can check in from there, and we'll get that up as quickly as possible. Thank you all for coming, and God bless.